to give the floor to Dr. Sanjay Swami. He's a professor for soil science and agriculture, chemistry, School of Natural Resource Management, College of Postgraduate Studies in Agriculture Science in Central Agriculture University, Imphal. It is correct?
Yes.
Also in Umiam, Barapani in Meghalaya, India. Professor Sanjay graduates from Rajasthan Agriculture University with the first class honor degree in agriculture science. And later he obtained a graduate and doctorate degree in the field of soil science with first class from CCS Haryana Agriculture University, Hisar, India. Following this, Dr. Swami took up a research position at ICAR Central Soil Salinity Research Institute in Karnal, India. And later on, he served Sher-e-Kashmir University of Agriculture Science in Jammu, India, as assistant professors. In present, Dr. Swami is a professor in soil science and agriculture chemistry at School of Natural Resource Management, College of Postgraduate Studies in Agriculture Science, Umiam, Barapani, under Central Agriculture University, Imphal, India. He have a very good experience in research projects. He handled 5 externally funded projects and contributes at over 100 research papers, and congratulations for that. He was involved in organization of many national or international conferences as organizing secretary. So his experience in all this event, it's very good. For us, it's a very good pleasure to see you, to have you here, and to listen your interesting presentation. So, Dr. Sanjay, have a floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriela, for nice introducing me. Okay, let me first share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it is okay.
Okay. So thank you. Well, friends, first of all, let me just express my sincere thanks to the chair and the organizing director of this summer school for providing me this opportunity to interact with you people, and also to co-chair this important session. So friends, I am just interacting with you people on the nutrient management under organic production system, that how we can manage the nutrients requirement of the crop, particularly in the organic management system. As you know, that our traditional farming practices, traditional farming agriculture, that was predominantly you can say organic in nature by default, because earlier we were not having any fertilizers and we are not using them. So definitely our production potential was very less, but we are producing the quality products. And with the advent of this green revolution, or you can say the chemocentric agriculture, we are heavily dependent on these fertilizers or pesticides, many type of chemicals, herbicides, weedicides. So my concern is only the source of nutrients. So you know that nowadays we are using chemical fertilizers a lot, and definitely we have exploited our natural resources, because you know the chemical fertilizers, the single grain of any chemical fertilizer that have only a particular nutrient element, but it is not having any organic material. That's why in long run, what we have did, we have not added any organic material, and in turn our soils has been degraded. We have lost this fertility particularly. And others, what are the other sources? Some other sources are organic sources, and there may be some type of farming practices which we can adopt. So I would like to dwell upon these organic sources and farming practices. Friends, you see, because of this high yielding varieties, the crop demand or the fertilizer demand is increasing day by day. You can see the trend here. This is the world demand of NPK fertilizer in 1,000 tons. Nitrogen requirement uh, in 2016 was only 105,000 tons, whereas it increased to 110 by 2021. Likewise, phosphorus was required at only 44,000 tons, but it has increased by 48,000 tons. Potassium was at 35,000 tons, whereas the present 2021 requirement is 39,000 tons. And by 2022, it is further going to increase. So how much fertilizer we are adding to our natural resources or our mother soil, that you can just estimate, just imagine. Coming to the India, because I belong to India, uh, in the last decade, you can see that how this NPK consumption has been increased. Particularly in 2011, we have the highest, you can say, the NPK consumption. Thereafter, it decreased somehow, and in 2014 it was least in particular this decade, and thereafter again it is increasing day by day. So friend, what actually this fertilizer which we are adding to our soil, what is the fate of this fertilizer? It breaks down in the soluble form, and some of the you can say the elements that has been, some of the amount has been utilized by the plants, and rest unused ammonia, nitrate, and similar components, they mix with the air, groundwater, or soil and pollute them. Likewise, soil and environmental start getting pollution, that I already told that the unused amount is polluting our resources. And definitely in the form of food, we are taking food, and through the food chain, these pollutants, they are entering the human body. That's why we are facing the, you can say, the health hazard also. And nowadays, people are very conscious for the health, and particularly in this pandemic era, we have seen this thing that the people or the you can say the population which are residing in the villages and consuming the organic products without this chemical free food, they survived lot, whereas the person who were dependent on the fast food, or you can say residing in cities and consuming this chemical fertilizer or pesticide containing foods, they are the most suffered. Now, there are many challenges which we are facing by this conventional farming, or by, you can say, the farming which is chemocentric. Now we are facing the declining of factor productivity. We are facing the nutrient mining. Initially, we are facing only the micronutrient deficiency. Thereafter, it comes to secondary, and now we are facing even micronutrient deficiency and multiple nutrient deficiency. As I told you, we have degraded our soil resources by adopting these intensive tillage practices. The first speaker has already told that in the conservation agriculture, we are avoiding this, intensive tillage. Then again, the same thing, that we have used only the chemical fertilizer without any addition of the organic material, and we have lost soil organic carbon pool. That's why our soil has been degraded. Then definitely we have adopted monotonous, or you can say monocropping system, particularly rice or wheat sequence, and by that we have a huge buildup in the, you can say, the pest then definitely we are facing this shrinking farm productivity and nutritional insecurity. Again, we are facing the loss in biodiversity and different type of environmental program, climates and extreme weather events, you know well, very well. So just to address all these problems, what is the solution? What we can adopt? And friends, it is really, I can say with the, you can say with the faith that organic farming is the only solution for all these problems. Now, my concern is the particularly the soil health, and I have given one definition of this organic farming, because in organic farming, the central dogma is also the soil, and we can define the organic farming that it is a method of farming in which our aim is to cultivate the land or raising the crop in a way so that we can keep the soil alive and in good health using different type of sources. That may be organic wastage, that may be biological material like microbes, and we want to increase this production in eco-friendly way so that we can feed the growing population, we can meet out the health hazards also. Friends, just you can see the four basic principles of organic farming. The first and foremost principle is on health. We have to care about healthy soil, we have to maintain healthy crops, we have to have healthy livestock, and we have to, then we will have only the healthy people. So I am dwelling upon this first principle, particularly in the soil. This is the definition you already know. It has been already discussed by Professor Gabriela also. So the organic farming is to cultivate the right time with the right resources. Now, the basic things, many of the things has been discussed regarding the soil by the previous speaker, but the soil health, it is the change in the soil quality over time due to human or management or natural events. And how we can just see these changes, we can see in terms of organic matter, we can see in terms of, we can assess the soil health in terms of crop appearance, and erosion should be minimum, earthworm numbers should be high, infiltration should be fast, there should be no ponding, and compaction should be minimal. By these features, even we can just have an idea about soil health. Now, it is the three types of, you can say, physical, chemical, and biological properties, and where we have the balance of all these properties, we have a good soil health. We can say that the soil is very healthy or sound. Friends, now you see the healthy soil, it is a crop production function, and when we have good crop production or good yield, when we have the balanced supply of nutrients, and how we can supply these nutrients, definitely when we will have healthy soils, then we will have healthy crops, and then we will have healthy food, and then we can have the only healthy population in this world. So in organic farming, the main philosophy is to feed the soil, not the plant. You see, in conventional farming, we are feeding the plant. Here you can just see, we have put the fertilizers and that solubilize and will be taken up by the plant. But in organic farming, we are feeding the soil, we are putting the organic matter like crop residue, manures, green manure, mulch, compost, or there may be natural fertilizers like rock phosphate, like lime, like gypsum. Okay, so these sources, they are just providing the food material for soil microbes, they are releasing the nutrients, they are providing the different type of chelating agents, antibiotics, then growth factor, glomulin, vitamins, all these things they are providing the plant. So in nutshell, here the philosophy is to feed the soil, not to feed the plant. And for that we have the different type of sources, and I have categorized all these sources in four major, you can say, the sections. First is in situ application. We have different type of green manures, annual and perennial green manure crops. Then crop residues like leaves, stem, roots, stubbles. Then poultry manure directly we can go in for in situ application of poultry litter. Then recycling of weed biomass. We have very good, you can say, generation of weed biomass also. We can use that weed biomass also for incorporation purpose. Then some pre-digested or semi-digested manure in this section, in this category, we can include the farmyard manure, then composting, and some type of other wastage like this dung and urine of sheep, goat, pigs, like this. Then friends, we have biofertilizers, different type of biofertilizers like nitrogen fixing agent. In this category, we have rhizobium, azotobacter, azosphyllum bacteria, then nitrogen containing vegetations like algae, azolla, then phosphorus soluble bacteria, fungi, then vermicomposting, use of earthworms in particularly in situ, then nitrogen fixing crops and trees like different type of leguminous crop and trees. Then friends, the last is cultural methods. We can adopt this crop rotation with pulse because pulse have the modulation capacity and they can fix the atmospheric nitrogen. Then intercropping with legume again, we can have some legume crops in the intercropping system. Then minimum delays for nutrient conservation, LA cropping, strip cropping, like these are the some of the cultural methods which we can adopt. So I am taking one by one. That first thing is this crop residue management, how we can incorporate or how we can best manage this crop residue. Friends, this crop residue, when we incorporate it, enhance the soil chemical, physical, and biological properties. All the three properties. Which is, if you see the you can say the generation of crop residue worldwide, so we have very good potential, and particularly in India also we are having around 700 million tons of this crop residue, and out of that, many of that which has been, you can say, as a traditional practice, it is used to burn, but we can utilize that crop residue, and we can, particularly the cereals crop residue, we can incorporate for managing the soil fertility. Now I am particularly from this northeastern region, and we have also very good potential of the residue generation by different crops like maize, pulse, rice, oilseed crops. Then again, one thing I want to say, that here in Meghalaya in India, we have the highest rainfall throughout the globe, and that's why we are having a very good, you can say, the weed biomass, or you can say weed population. And I have listed 5-6 species with the nutrient content. You can just see that how much NPK are available in this weed biomass, and that weed biomass can be incorporated for, you can say, adding the nutrients. And friends, this is the traditional practice, because we are not having much gap in two crop seasons, and that's why farmers, they prefer to burn the residues. That is not a good practice, because it is very much creating environmental problems and health also. I think you have heard about these problems in the national capital region of India. And if the same crop residue we can utilize as mulch material, because if we use this material, we can conserve the moisture also in better way. Then this mulch provide a better soil temperature, moderation in soil temperature. Then we have very good benefit of this low greenhouse gas emission and low erosion also. And also it provides, after decomposition, it provides very, you can say, the high quality organic material, and that is with the, you can say, the greater soil organic carbon. Then friends, one nowadays it is very, you can say, the very interesting and very upcoming things, that we can produce biochar from this residue. we can convert all these crop residue into the biochar with a simple process that we call slow pyrolysis. Because here we have to keep the temperature high in anoxic condition, and this is also a very good or very economic way of managing all these crop residues. This is the simple, you can say, the diagram or flow diagram how we can going to means prepare this biochar. You can see that this 100% carbon in biochar can be back returned by the way of this preparing this biochar at almost 50% carbon we can return to the soil, and 50% in the form of biofuel that may include some bio oils and hydrogens that can be utilized as a energy product. Then this is the simple technique that Krida have developed for this preparation of this biochar clean. I am not going in detail, but it is very easy and farmer friendly techniques. Friends, again, here we have a automatic system also where we can feed almost 300 to 400 kilogram of biomass per hour to produce the biochar, and within 15 minutes we can get this feeding of this material, we can get good quality of biochar. We have also conducted many experiment. One experiment I am just discussing here, that we have made different type of combination, different doses of biochar with the recommended dose of fertilizers, along with the different type of you can say the vermicompost, also the organic matter, organic manure also, because this biochar is giving good result with the combination of organic manure. And we have find out that if we apply 4 ton of biochar with the 100% recommended dose of fertilizer and 2.5 ton per hectare vermicompost, then it is improving the soil pH also, as well as the quality of tomato, or you can say the fruit crop particularly, the vegetable crop particularly. Then friends, we have the FIM. All you know that FIM, it is very good source of nutrient, but we have to apply, we have to adopt the right method for application of this FIM. We evenly and avoid the heaping, because whenever the rainfall event there is there, we may lose the nutrients, and even evaporation of nitrogen can take place in the hot atmosphere. That's why we have to means mix it properly in the upper layer, and then we have to means incorporate. Then vermicomposting, it is very really a very good you can say the product, we good source of nutrient, and even it contains high percentage of humus also. And if you see the upper top good soil and compare with that, the vermicompost is having 5 times more the available nitrogen, and 7 times more than this potassium, and 1.5 times more calcium particularly. You know, it is a very simple technique. We have to rear the worms, and within 3 months of time we can get good quality of vermicompost. Then again with the same technique, you know that we can have this vermivash also. Then friends, coming to one major source is biogas also, because particularly we have provided free of cost this biogas units in the villages also, where we have plenty of availability of cow dung. And this biogas, it is very good source of nutrient, because loss of nitrogen through ammonia or nitrate is minimized because of this closed chamber, and we can utilize this biogas slurry as a organic source. Then friends, again we have different type of oil cakes, and we have this edible or non-edible oil cakes. That is also very good source of nutrients. We can easily just apply these oil cakes also, whether it is edible or non-edible. And here I have just shown the nutrient content, particularly this NPK of different type of cakes: castor cake, cottonseed cake, neem cake, crunch cake, some safflower, groundnut, linseed. You can just imagine that even castor cake is having almost 4% of nitrogen, and almost 1.5 or you can say 2% phosphoric acid. Then again, I told that we have to include pulses in our cropping system, because that is enhancing the, you can say, the fixing the atmospheric nitrogen. Then we have different type of green manures like Suspenia, Crotalaria, then Densa, like Lucerne, Sunham, Persimmon. These are the, you can say, the major green crop, the green manuring crops. And before the main crop, just we can sow these crops, and at very succulent stage we can incorporate to have a good, you can say, the nutrient for the main crop. These are some of the pictures which we have done experiment in our fields. Then friends, this particularly we can have the induced nodulation also with the particularly this Suspenia rostra. Here we have to sow the Suspenia seed around 1st of this June. Then the nodule extract of Azorhizium we can spray just after the 4 days of the emergence of this seedling, and definitely you will see the occurrence of nodulation 15 days after inoculation, and we may grow that crop for 30 days, and then we may have the incorporation. Here you can see that this is the artificial nodulation through Azorhizium inoculation. This is the 15 days of seeding. You can very easily see the nodulation, and here you can see the difference. One side, it is left hand side is uninoculated, whereas right hand side is inoculated. You can see the how much difference is there in the nodulation. Then friends, we have different type of biofertilizers. I already said that for nitrogen we have Rhizobium for legumes, and for non-legumes we have Azotobacter, Azosphyllum. Then for sugarcane we have this Acetobacter, then BGA, then Azolla for particularly lowland veggie. For phosphorus we have this phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, and almost this cellulotic fungal culture also. Then if you see the benefit of these 5 fertilizers, we can increase the yield by 20 to 30%. Different type of experiment has been conducted, and it is well proven. Then we can replace the chemical nitrogen or phosphorus particularly by 25%. We can even have the supplement to the fertilizers. The biofertilizers, they stimulate the plant growth and activate the soil biologically. Then these are the, you can say, the how we can apply the fertilizer, biofertilizers with its seed treatment, soil treatment, and the root dip method. I'm not going to discuss all these things in detail. And these are the techniques. Then different biofertilizer, how they are contributing. Here you can see the nutrient fixation capacity also, how much yield is going to be increased, and in which crops they are suitable. I have given particularly here in this slide for nitrogen. This Rhizobium species, they can fix up to 50 to 200 kilogram nitrogen per hectare, and we may have increase in yield by 15 to 30%, particularly in leguminous crop. Then Azotobacter, Acetobacter, Azosphyllum, all these things, how much they can fix the nutrient, their capacity I have given here, and how much we can have the increase in yield, that is also shown here. Then coming to the phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, you can see that phosphorus solubilizing microorganisms, they can increase they can fix the nutrient by 20 to 50 kilogram P2O5 per hectare, and likewise 10 to 30 kilogram P2O5 we can have fixed by the phosphorus mobilizing microbes, particularly microalgae. Wow. Then we have also calculated the cost benefit ratio with the application of these biofertilizers, and it is shown here that for different type of this Azobacter application, we have 1 to 7.1 PC ratio. Likewise, this is for I could not find for which fertilizer it is calculated here, because it is not. Then coming to the Azolla, yes, it is very, you can say, the potential source. It is having almost you can say the around 4% nitrogen in azolla, and it is aquatic fern. It has a very high multiplication rate. Within 2-3 days it can be doubled, and it has the multiple rows, multi-purpose. You can say the if we are using this azolla, small amount of azolla, if we are spreading on the paddy field, within few days you can see that entire this surface of water that can be covered with the azolla population. And at one hand it is checking the evaporation of water, it is checking the weed growth, that you will see that there is no weed. And after you can say the after end of this crop, all these azolla will remain on the soil surface and will add, after incorporation it will add nutrients, particularly the nitrogen in the soil. Friends, this azolla even we can use as a substrate material for preparing this vermicompost also, because it has high nitrogen percent. If we prepare vermicompost from this material, that quality of the vermicompost also enhances a lot. Then we have some liquid bioformulations also, and in that particularly here we have a very good, you can say the formulation, we name it as Panchgavya. You know, it is made up of 5 major components that got from cow. We have although there are 9 ingredients, but because 5 ingredient we got from particularly the cattle, that's why we call it as Panchgavya. And here I have given the methodology for preparation of this Panchgavya. We have to take cow dung 7 kilogram, cow ghee 1 kilogram, cow urine 10 liter, cow milk 3 liter, cow curd 2 liter, then tender coconut water, jaggery, then some well ripened banana, and of course some water. And first we have to mix this cow dung and cow ghee, and then thoroughly mix in the morning and evening hours, and we can keep this solution by 3 days. Then we have to mix cow urine and water, and we can keep it for 15 days, and we have to just adopt this regular mixing the evening and morning hours. And after 15 days we can mix this cow milk, cow curd, coconut, jaggery, banana, and we will have after 30 days this ready of this Panchgavya material. This Panchgavya material, we can dilute it and we can utilize it in various, you can say the nutrient supplying capacity purpose. Here you can see how much the microbial load, particularly this Panchgavya is having fungi, bacteria, lactobacillus, acid formers, all those type of this microbial load it is having. And of course it is a good source of NPK and other, you can say other secondary elements. Then we can recommend its application through various you can say the modes. We can spray it with the sprayer, we can with the preparation of 3% solution, and even with irrigation water also. Then again we can use in seed storage also. Then we can treat the rhizomes of ginger, the turmeric, and banana sucker, potato tuber, all these things. We can even dip all this you can say the seed material in 3% solution of this Panchgavya for 20 minutes, and then you will get the good results. These are the some of the bioformulation prepared for particularly Jhum land, because we are here in this area we are practicing even Jhum cultivation also. So friends, in nutshell, I want to say that there are so many options, so many sources for nutrients, and we can avoid the chemical fertilizer. We have to adopt the organic way of cultivation, and then only we can have the good production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life. So thank you very much for your patience hearing. And at the end, I would again like to thank the organizers for providing me this opportunity to share some of my works. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for your presentation. As I said in the first presentation, and we saw it in the next one, the soil quality and the soil health, it's crucial for the quality of agriculture and the quality of food. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for your contribution. And now I think it's time to have delegates.